I was talking to someone on the phone the other day, and it wasn't a prospect client. It was just someone on the phone, like an operator. I was talking to the bank or something. And we started having a conversation when she asked me what I do. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, well, this lady, she's American, and she was married to a Mexican gentleman. And at some point, they moved to Mexico. When she was in Mexico, she started learning Spanish. And at some point, she came to a conclusion, a negative, dark conclusion that all of us that move to a different culture, that are living in a culture different than ours, speaking a different language, can come to. We can come to that same conclusion. And I'm going to tell you what the conclusion is and how to avoid getting to that conclusion and what you can do to not feel that way. The conclusion she came to was that she was never going to be taken seriously speaking Spanish the way she did. Of course, she was already an adult. She, I believe she was learning the language, but she was having a hard time getting rid of her accent. She probably would never get rid of the accent because it's very, very hard, almost impossible to get rid of the accent when you're an adult. And and she went into that defeated mode that she was never going to be taken seriously. Now, has she gone through situations where she really wasn't taken seriously because of that? That might have happened, yes. Was there ways to circumvent that? Was there ways to build that sense of confidence and security and that sense of, well, I take myself seriously. So because of that, I know other people will. Yes, there are ways to do that. But she came to that detrimental conclusion and they left Mexico. I don't even know if she stayed married. I mean, we only talked for like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. So I don't know what's her life story. But she came to that very detrimental, sad conclusion that she would never be taken seriously and she gave up. So, my audience, I speak to people who speak English as a second language, and most of you live in the United States. So, you're always under this risk of feel that you're not taken seriously because of your accent. Now, is this real or is this not? Accent bias is real. Definitely, some people will immediately pass a judgment of people like us with accents. They will immediately pass a judgment and they will think that yes, we are less than them. That's going to happen, of course. You can't control this. But hey, that happens in many different areas of life. Some people look at you and they judge you for what you're wearing. Like right now, I have a business page, I have a page, LinkedIn account where I talk to executives and business owners and founders and engineers. And yet I'm wearing a baseball hat, I'm wearing a t-shirt. So some of you might be looking at me and be like, ha, this kid is not serious. But you know what? We have no control over this. We have no control over what kind of judgment people make of us. So what can I do? What can I offer you? For example, in the case of the way I'm dressed, what I'm wearing, what can I offer you to counter that judgment? I can offer you my wisdom. And then if you listen to me carefully, you might be like, he's not dressed as an executive. However, I think what he's saying has a lot of value and wisdom in it. So, yes, I'm going to start listening more to this guy. I'm going to start trusting this guy more. What happens when you move to a different culture? Of course, there is a trust barrier. You are an outsider. You are the other. It's I know it's not politically correct to talk about them and us, but that's how people feel. Why? Because many, many years ago, maybe, a few hundreds of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago, an outsider represented danger, like literal danger. Thousands of years ago, the outsider might have been someone who came to kill your people, to destroy your village, to pillage. Even more in the past, when we were like a caveman, it was very, very scary to accept outsiders in your small, tightly knit community. So it's normal for human beings to be leery of outsiders. And when we move to a new culture, and when we live in a different country, we deal with that reality head on. People are literally leery of us, suspicious of us. Some of them are scared of us. Some of them do not want us there. They're like, I don't want you here. But that's not everybody. And that's not everybody. What I'm saying is you have the right to be there. You have the right to be yourself. But it's not only about right, it's about building that confidence and that trust. So, yes, there will be a trust barrier, there will be accent bias, and it's going to be up to you to overcome that. It's going to be up to you to build that trust among the local, the natives, or even the other foreigners that have been there longer than you. They're going to be suspicious of you too because they think you're coming to get their stuff. You're coming to replace them. So it's up to us to conquer this space. And how can you conquer this space? First of all, it's inner work. If you have to conquer this space inside, you have to understand that you do belong there. You know, if you're in a country legally doing your thing, you're not doing anything wrong, you have the right to be there. And there's no one to tell you the opposite unless you're doing something wrong, unless you're committing crimes or you're illegally you violated their trusts and you overstayed or something like this, which it's a whole different discussion. Okay. It's a whole different discussion. I'm not going to get into that right now. But if you are in America working legally, you are not doing anything wrong, you're following the laws, you're abiding the laws, you have absolutely 100% the right to be here. There's nothing wrong with you being here. There's nothing wrong with you showing up. So the first work that you have to do, what I would recommend that lady that went to Mexico, the first work is internal. Maybe she already has some insecurities. And what that exposure to a different culture did to her was to expose those insecurities to herself as well. So it was very difficult for her to deal with those insecurities, just like it is, for many of us. I have a whole bunch of insecurities. I had to deal with all of them to feel like I belong here in the United States and to feel whole and complete and to show up as myself. So the first work is internal, is you accepting yourself, is you understanding that other people's opinions about you has nothing to do with your self-worth. That's my first suggestion. And my second suggestion or invitation to address something like this is to study the culture, to understand the culture, to be open to the culture, and start to identify how can I build more trust among the people in this culture that I want to interact with. And it's not even everybody, just the people that you want to interact with, the spaces where you want to be, where you want to belong. How can I build this trust? How can I make people feel a little bit less suspicious of me? How can I get people to understand my value? And the way to do that is showing up consistently, but also developing positive aspects of your character, being humble, at the same time developing that confidence, not letting people step on you, not letting people lean on you and step over you. That's not what I mean with being humble. Being humble, I mean not being, I mean the opposite of arrogant. There's no need to be arrogant. That's not how you're going to conquer. That's not how you're going to build that trust. Being humble, being professional, being polite, these are just ways you can do it, and just being the best version of yourself. So when we move to a different country, whether we want it or not, we get into a phase of personal growth, personal development. We do need to develop ourselves. That's normal. So yes, it is possible. I have a Brazilian friend who is in a very high position at the Disney World company. And when I asked him how he did that, and he has an accent, he looks Brazilian. And then when I asked him how he did that, he said, "Listen, Joel, I've always put myself in spaces that looked like I didn't belong there." So he tapped into another quality, which is courage. He tapped into courage. He was brave and he did that. So these are all things you can do to overcome that sense that you're not, that feeling that you're never going to be taken seriously. Because being taken seriously, of course, it depends on the other side because we're talking about a reaction from the other person, but it's more of an internal thing. It's more something that you do to yourself, that you develop inside yourself, and then people start taking it seriously. One way also for you to remind yourself that it is possible to be taken seriously in a different culture is to think of all the people from different cultures that are taken very seriously here in the United States. And there are a whole bunch of them. Eckhart Tolle, um, Naval Ravikant. Who else? Oh, there are so many. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Gary Vee. These are all people that come from different countries, but who were able to navigate the culture and make themselves be taken seriously because of all the contributions, because of how much they've done to this country and to their own countries. So, yes, it is possible. Reaching that conclusion that you're not going to ever be taken seriously is just the negative mind game, something that's detrimental, and that you should, if you identify you're falling into that trap, you must do something about it. Otherwise, it can get really overwhelming and you cannot control your life.